r/Askreddit by Reddit and chill. Doctors. What is the worst homemade cure a patient used for their illness? An older woman with a big, gaping foot ulcer visited her family in Indonesia. Her sister took her to a spiritual healer, who instructed her to make an ointment and apply it to the ulcer. The ointment included herbs, sheep urine, olives, human hair. The day after applying the ointment, she was to cleanse the ulcer in the ocean. After a few weeks of this, the ulcer would heal. Obviously it did not heal, and a rare mycoplasma bacteria found only in the ocean grew in her wound, and she lost her foot. There comes a point in spiritual healing where even uneducated people can tell it won't work. Spiritual healing, in my opinion, is a bit of a placebo thing, and can be comforting. But this? I knew someone who got cancer and decided to starve it instead of taking chemo. First results after the 40-day fast were promising, but not for long. He died in less than a year. The sad part is, the survival rate with chemo for this type of cancer is really high, and it was detected quite early. What kind was it? Told patients to apply cream to their foot. They ignored my advice and just kept rubbing garlic over it. They later came back and I told them their foot is getting worse because they aren't using their cream and they now need to go to hospital. They ignored me and kept just rubbing garlic. Eventually they lost their foot. OMG. What is it with people and garlic? Dermatologist here. Dude was trying to get rid of his papulopustulosis acne with a homemade mask, which consisted of a mix of betamethasone ointment, honey, cream cheese, yogurt, banana, and makeup in cream for color. So many bad things here, and the dude developed a nodular cystic acne after 3 or so applications, which he did daily because of course. Who suggested this abomination? Various YouTube videos and his own initiative of mixing everything in a bowl to cure faster. Going by the logic, the more stuff you put in your cure, the higher the chance you will eventually hit 1 or 2 things that actually helps. I took my daughter to the DR for a recurring ear infection when she was about 4. The DR took one look in her ear and asked me if I had seen her putting any foreign objects into her ears, and I said no. He then took some tweezers and pulled out a small piece of what turned out to be garlic. I told him I had no idea how it got there. He said it was definitely making her ear infections worse. Turns out that her dad and stepmom had heard that garlic oil can help cure infections and they didn't have any. So instead of taking my daughter to the doctor like they should have, they literally just shoved a small clove of garlic in my daughter's ear and left it there. I'm guessing there were some family court ramifications over that. Paramedic once had a patient diagnosed with a cancerous growth on his ear. He took care of it himself with fingernail clippers. It got so infected by the time he called 911. We could see his jawbone through his cheek. What inspired him to call 911? I hope it was the jawbone. Not a doctor, but a pharmacist who works in an ER. I had a woman come in for chest pain, and when I was interviewing her for her medication history, she was telling me how bad the pain was that she took everything in her medicine cabinet. I asked her to list what she has in her medicine cabinet, what she took. The list went: Tylenol, acetaminophen, 2 tablets, Advil, ibuprofen, 2 tablets, aspirin 2 tablets, heroin 1-2 points, gravel. At which point I kind of had to go, hold up, you used how many points of what? And the patient very matter-of-factly stated that she came in because the heroin didn't help with the pain at all. Which in some ways I guess was a pretty reasonable course of action, since she came in since the heroin didn't work. Honestly, plus to her for not going super overboard on anything in there if it was the amount you say. Only thing kinda sketchy about that in terms of bodily harm, assuming the heroin isn't adulterated with fentanyl or something else more harmful than heroin itself, is the Tylenol plus Advil plus aspirin stack. Did you ever find out what was wrong with them? In before it was just hyperalgesia from chronic opioid usage. Nurse here. Had the fortunate luck to be privy to a patient's super duper secret way of getting rid of leg cramps at night. Get a cork. Not just any cork though. It must be from a bottle of red wine. And tuck it in between your toes at night. He was very sure that was the cure that Big Pharma wasn't telling us. completely irrelevant that he started taking a magnesium supplement at the same time as his newfound super cure of toe cork fondling. So Big Pharma, if you're reading this, we all know now. Put a cork in it. My mom, a psychiatric nurse practitioner, has a patient who smokes meth because it's the only thing that helps them sleep. Pretty wacky considering Nazis in World War II used it to not sleep. Nurse here. I used to work at a rural magnet hospital in the south. Had a patient who was there because he'd gotten athlete's foot and decided to use an old mountain remedy to soak your feet in vinegar, lemon juice, and boiling water to kill the fungus. In fairness, the original remedy probably called for merely hot water, but the guy went a little overboard with the temperature. He gave himself some nice bilateral third-degree burns on his feet, but there was no sign of any athlete's foot, so he had that going for him, which was nice. I'm also a nurse that's done quite a bit of work in the south. Had a woman come in who had what was likely an infected follicle right next to her labia. She thought it would be a good idea to heat up a needle with a pocket lighter to sterilize it and poked it. I saw her after her first treatment. Caused a big old tunneling infection around 1 centimeter in diameter parallel to her vaginal canal. Stuck a big Q-tip in probably 8 inches before I hit the end when I was repacking it. Not a doctor, but my vet friend once had a client rub butter all over her cat in hopes that the cat would lick it off because the cat had stopped eating. There's a level of reasoning in this one that's totally out of whack with how ultimately silly it is. My aunt has this concoction of basically just rubbing alcohol and marijuana leaves, seeds and stems, and for whatever crazy reason she thinks that if you rub it over an ache that it will magically make it go away. Lol, she calls it the brujeria. It's like CBD oil cures but without all that useless extraction process. Lol. My best friend growing up rubbed CBD oil on her stomach after she was diagnosed with uterine cancer to try to cure it. It isn't very aggressive so it hasn't spread that much, but she's convinced she's cured. I feel bad for her daughter. How does she know it hasn't spread? If she's self-medicating, she's likely self-diagnosing as well. Denial is not just a river in Egypt. Not a DR. I'm an X-ray tech in a hospital. Had a patient with a breast infection. She attempted to treat it with Neosporin. When she finally came to the ER, there was just a huge gaping hole on her chest where the breast used to be. The smell in the room was overpowering to say the least. It turns out you can't cure breast cancer with Neosporin. I don't know if she survived or not. I have metastatic breast cancer. I should save this comment for those days when I'm so sick from my meds that I feel like giving up. Yeah. Fatigue and upset stomach and taste changes suck. I'm eating dry toast because that's what my gut can handle. But I will never have a gaping hole in my chest. And I will have good days on these meds. I'll have a few more years than that poor lady. At least I think I will. Worth it. Doctor in the family told me an infant was brought into the ER incredibly ill, shaking, and vomiting from her daycare. She had a huge oral ulcer in her mouth that her mom tried to cure by killing the bacteria, but they were out of mouthwash, so she diluted vodka in apple juice. She had the "can I see the manager" haircut and threw a huge fit when CPS was called. Whoa. So did she also have the deer in headlights look when CPS arrived? Not a doctor, but the son of one. There was a guy who would go in once a year or so for checkups. He had surgery on his foot and needed it looked at regularly. My dad was the surgeon, so anyways. One day guy comes in for his apt. Says he isn't feeling well. Thinks he might have gotten the flu from his kids. No big deal. Unrelated illness happens. Right? Well, he was talking to my dad before he took his shoes off. He was beaming. Yeah. I fell pretty hard. Gashed my foot open. But I fixed it myself. Saved a trip to the hospital. Well, lo and behold. He has taken copper wire and sutured the gash shut. It had been a week and it was badly infected. That's where his flu-like symptoms came from. Had he waited a few more days it would have killed him. Dad took those out. Dressed it. The skin had degraded too far to sew up properly. Prescribed him antibiotics and referred him to the hospital for observation. He ended up spending $3,000 on his care instead of the $200 or so for stitches in the first place. Jesus, copper wire WTFY? Use super glue or duct tape like a real American. Rural nurse here. Had a patient soak his finger in kerosene in order to make it grow back. I'm picturing the severed finger in a glass of kerosene on the kitchen windowsill, waiting for it to sprout roots like a plant cutting. Had a patient who couldn't sleep because she had gotten bug bites on her legs keeping her awake. Her cure? She poured boiling water on them. Gave herself third-degree burns to treat her bug bites. Okay, I use a warm spoon remedy to remove itching. Hold a spoon under the hot tap until the spoon is warm, not burning, and press on bite. It works, but it's not permanent. But this? Christ. This isn't from something I've seen clinically. But if you look it up, there's news articles about FB groups of parents who encourage each other to do horrible bleach enemas or to make their kids swallow caustic chemicals to cure autism. And then when the kids get agitated and shed their intestinal lining, they consider it a sign that it's working. This is literal child abuse. Not only that, but the crazier ones think autism is caused by parasites, usually blamed on GMO experiments by the government or big pharma. They call the intestinal lining rocketworms. They legit think their children's shredded organs are worms. I'm a urologist. I had a patient come into the ED with wire wrapped around the head of his penis. He attached this to what I think were popsicle sticks and another band of wire around the base of his penis. It was like a penis splint. He said it was to give him erections. The wire had eroded through his skin and his corporeal bodies were exposed as well as his urethra. This actually appeared to be just ischemic necrosis and wasn't even really infected. It was copper wire. Yes. He was homeless and mentally ill. I'm a paramedic and my partner told me the worst he has ever seen was for a burn patient. He said that he saw a teenager hobbling towards him covered in a bunch of white gooey gunk. So apparently homeboy was out in the country trying to start a big bonfire and he first decided to douse his big bundle with some gasoline before tossing a match in. Well, it caught real fast and he got a big ol' flash burn across his whole body. His mama apparently used to be a certified nurse and covered him in mayonnaise because that would help treat the burn. Yeah, nah. All she did was introduce a ducton of infection into his body and make it much more excruciating for him when my partner had to wipe it off of him and place burn bandages on him while they transported him to the hospital. Certified duckwit. More like. Not a doctor, yet, but work in EMS. The number of folks who think WD-40 will help arthritis pain is abnormally high. Also, though this is not explicitly a home remedy, but the people who think things will just cure themselves with time. Yes. This works sometimes. Yes. Healthcare is financially prohibitive. But if something has been debilitating you for more than 72 hours, it probably won't be going away anytime soon. Just go get it checked. It's cheaper to treat something over time than to go, oh duck, I suddenly need 500k for this procedure or I'm gonna die. Do they spray the WD-40 on their joints? Please tell me they don't eat it. Not a doctor. I work at a grocery store deli. One lady, who is a regular, is convinced that magnets cure body ailments. She has magnets in her car and occasionally she'll make a big show of being unable to breathe. She is fine. And I'd call the ambulance. She will walk all the way outside to her car, bring the chintzy fridge magnets back inside to our back corner. Then by rubbing the magnets on her chest through all of layers of clothes, she is cured and doesn't need the paramedics or medical help. And don't get her started on how oranges and vitamins are the cure for autism. Really? Don't. I will slap your hand so hard. I work in IT and have a related story. One of our employees was always having odd laptop problems. For years it seemed. We all jokingly said she was cursed because she went through laptops pretty quickly. One day we're eating lunch in the break room and she says something about the magnet bed she sleeps on. I said, hold up. Do what? She apparently had some long mattress like thing on top of her regular mattress that was essentially one giant magnet. I asked her if she regularly used her laptops in bed at night. To which she said yes. That suddenly explained most of her IT issues. She stopped using her laptop in bed and she never really had any more computer issues after that. The worst part of all that was that she's the director of nursing at a healthcare company. Getting drunk to cure a cold. The Irish version is a few hot whiskey. Then go to bed in your cloths and lots of blankets. The alcohol is meant to keep you asleep while you sweat it out. A lady thought she could cure her cancer with essential oils. It didn't work, she ended up in the ER weeks later. Ducking like and subscribe.